Hey you, how you doing? My name is Tommy, and in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the secret that I've been using to actually be able to nail interviews, land interviews in the first place, even when there's 20, 30, sometimes 100 people going for the same spot, and how I've essentially landed a position on $1 million per month company. And so I'm going to be walking you through the process that I use, the one that I'm thinking about, and leveraging some of the insights I've gleaned over the past couple weeks, past month of distilling down my process for how I've essentially accomplished this. So if you're looking to get on bigger offers, get on better offers, and ultimately separate yourself from the pack, this is going to help you out a ton if you are obviously willing to put in the work. So without further ado, without a whole lot of preamble, I'm just going to kind of cut loose and this is going to be a little bit freestyle. So it's not going to be as structured as I typically would, but hey, we'll kind of go with it and see what happens. So when it comes to offers in general, essentially what you're doing is you're trying to get into the mind of a business owner and then position yourself in the best possible light based on what is true about you. You shouldn't be saying a bunch of shit and then lying. And then by lying, you get on the offer and then you can't do what you said you would do. It'll ruin your reputation. You're not going to be a good spot. And then no one else is going to want to work with you. So the key here is where you are today with your skill sets right now. How can I portray that in the best possible light based on the criteria they're thinking about? Now, that begs the question, what criteria are they thinking about? The first part is you actually being able to do what you say you do, actually having the skill set of closing or of setting, if that's the position you're starting in. If you can't do the job, I mean, it's kind of hard to overcome. It's a kind of like a chicken and the egg scenario. You don't have the skill set, so you can't easily land an offer. And when you do land an offer, it's really challenging for you to get the skill set. Just being transparent, I would highly, highly recommend investing in a high level training program that teaches you the skill sets so you can perform. And obviously, they'd have a good reputation of killers. There's a variety of ones you can look into. I'm a massive fan of anything from Tanner Chittister as well as Bill Walsh. Both have done extremely right by me. And so I highly encourage either of those, but you can obviously use whatever you wish. Um, this graph I have laid out right here, obviously, if you look at this, the way I approach being a closer or being an appointment setter is you are your own business. You're a sales agency of one, or you're a setter agency of one, whatever position you want to hold. And the thing that you give your clients, aka business owners, is fulfillment, which in a fulfillment role, if you're a closer, is going to be closing deals and or if you have a little bit of market experience, marketing skills. And so this down here is my personal fulfillment process. I happen to use the North Star process by Bill Walsh. It's the one I'm one of the most familiar with and the one I like the best because it just makes it easiest for me to objection handle. And so that's why I use it. But I have my own doc and process for that. It's literally step by step. I can provide this to a business owner and say, this is what I do. This is why I do it. So they see me and it comes across that I am, of course, a pro, which if I am treating myself as a sales agency of one, I am a pro because I know my fulfillment. I know I get results. Now, with that being said, you have the skill sets, or if you don't have the skill sets, you know how to get the skill sets. Then comes how do you actually land offers and opportunities? Because there's going to be hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people wanting the exact same spots as you. Well, if you're your own agency and you're approaching it from that perspective, you have your own marketing department, you have your own nurturing department, you have your own sales department, and then you have your own, conversion, aka having and getting into the fulfillment piece, onboarding. Now, if you listen to Bill Walsh, he talks a lot about results, reputation, and relationships, which is all extremely important. In order for you to get those, you need the skill set. Again, going back to the first point, fulfillment. Um, Once that is in play, you start posting about your stuff, the wins you're getting, the things you're having. That is right here, the inbound marketing piece, meaning you're putting your stuff out there for people to see on socials. And then once that's said and done, people see, okay, and they start to associate you being able to perform with the fulfillment that you provide, which is closing or setting or whatever it specifically happens to be. There's also the other side of it, which is where you're actually doing outbound, meaning you're doing outreach on your own. Now, the issue with this is if you're doing outbound, it can come across as you begging for a position, which you kind of are, honestly. Unless you're in a position of extreme abundance where you're just making this part of your daily routine, which you should make it a part of your daily routine, consistently reaching out to new offers. it's going to come across as needy and desperate. And the thing is, there's hundreds of thousands of other people that are doing the exact same thing. So, how can you separate yourself from those sorts of people? There's, I'm obviously going to walk you through what I've done to accomplish that. So, for me, I'll go ahead and share this right here. This is essentially a Google Doc with a variety of questions that business owners will be thinking when they're considering you for being a closer or being a setter. Um, and I didn't, this is not original to me. I actually got this from Cole Gordon on one of his programs. I think it was 30-day closer. And he actually puts out like what he recommends for business owners within his community, how they should select high level talent. And so he literally provides this as like, these are the things you need to hit on. Like, what's their name? How many hours per week do they want to take calls? Like all these different points here. That's essentially what he provides for them to start vetting out good applications, bad applications, and actually get high quality team members on their team. So what I've essentially done is flipped it and then just inserted my stuff into that. And so my name, Tommy, how many hours per week? 40. Am I currently closing right now? Yes, I'm actually on 2, maybe 3 offers if you count the part-time one. They may want to ask this. I don't typically answer that question. I usually just delete it, but that's something on an interview they may want to ask, which that's the thing. All these questions are interview questions that they're going to want to ask you. And I've sent out this document to different people that I've seen were either interested in closers or I thought might be interested in closers based on some stuff that I'd seen. I just sent it to them as kind of like a part of my intro. And they're like, this is all the stuff I was going to ask you on the interview. And because I did that, I didn't actually need to do an interview. And that's what put me ahead of like, I think it was like 20 or 30 other people that were shooting for the exact same position as me. I didn't have to do the first group interview. I went straight onto the one-on-one because I had answered all these questions for them. And so part of this is obviously answering the questions based on where you are today. But the other side of it is positioning yourself with the mindset of what the business owner is ultimately looking for. Because if you think about it, a business owner, and I have covered this on a different video, is looking for someone who is an A player, who has a skill set that can perform consistently. They don't need to be managed in any way, shape, or form. If they send leads your way, every single lead gets closed. You do your end of days. You're not a headache to work with. And because you're not a headache to work with, they don't have to manage you. So it's no extra time on their part. And then because you print money out of your face and you take initiative, you're willing to do more than everybody else. They see you as a reliable team member that they don't have to manage and work on and babysit. And then lastly, because you are taking all this stuff off their plate, they get more time to grow the business or do whatever the hell else they want to do with their lives. That is the perfect person, one who closes every deal, does not need to be managed, does everything that they're told, brings more value to the table. That's the perfect A player for the business owner. Now, in reality, nobody's going to be able to close every deal. You're going to have to be managed to a degree. Like there's some factual things that have to be taken into account. But that's the closer you can get to that and the closer that you can be perceived as that person, the more likely they're going to want to move you down the funnel in an interview process. And the other thing, too, that really stands out to them is if they see you, number one, wanting to consistently be growing and potentially get into a position of leadership. Because what's even better than an A player who can perform in this role is an A player who's willing to move up and take on more responsibility moving forward. And so if you can portray yourself as that person, it makes you stand out beyond everybody else. And if you have good character too, like they actually like you as a human being, then that's even better because they're like, oh my gosh, this person's amazing. They can do all this extra work for me that I'm not going to have to do. They're smart. They can figure shit out on their own. That's perfect for a business owner. The closer you can get to that ideal, the more likely people will want to have you on their team. Now, here's the thing, disclaimer. I'm not telling you to lie. If you don't want to be in leadership, don't say that you're in leadership. That's something eventually I want to do. So most of the things that you're going to see are showing certain traits that are highly attractive to business owners, but I genuinely want those. And so what you're going to have to do is figure out what your long-term goals are, where you're wanting to go in life, and then based on that and a factual accounting of where you are today in terms of skill set and ability and that sort of stuff, not like with rose-tinted glasses, but actually where you are, take that where you're going, where you are today, and that's what you're using to create this. And then using that ammunition in the best possible way to portray yourself like that. So I'm going to be straight up. If you don't have a skill set, you don't have much of a track record, it's going to be more challenging to you than it would be for me because I've been in the game for 2 years now and I've worked with a variety of different high level people that stand out, which puts me to the top of the pile. But that does not mean that you cannot be successful using this. What it means is you may have to do more interviews and you may have to do more work. And you may have to invest more money into your skill sets to get better. I'm not going to BS you, but it doesn't help you if I just say, hey, everything all sunshine and rainbows, and then you're like, oh, but Tommy said X, Y, and Z, ABC, and it didn't work. No, there's a process you have to go through, and this is to put you where you are today in the best possible position and understand if remote closing or high ticket sales is the route you want to go, how can you win against other people that are not willing to put in this work? So, disclaimer aside, hopefully that wasn't too much of a rant for you. But continuing on with the explanation. There's a couple of key questions you're going to want to know and have really good answers for. So one of them is going to be, what has you looking for another position? That's what they're always going to ask. And you need to have a freaking solid answer for that. It can't be, oh, the leads dried up on my last one, because that makes you sound like a complainer. There has to be a good, solid reason for it. If the leads did dry up, or the leads were garbage, if you have a call recording, take that, download that, and then put it in here. Like, if you'll notice, there's clickable links here that people can click on. Like, if I click on this, just to let you know, every claim you make in this, there has to be proof for it. So I claim that I became a testimonial for Tanner Chittister. And here's a link to me as a testimonial for Tanner Chittister. I'm not just BS. You can go to his website and I'm still there. I'm not the best one anymore. I used to be the best one. There's a couple ones that have kind of done better than I did when I went through it, but that's a proof point they can look up about me. So it's not just me even saying who I am, it's giving verifiable data sources that they can go check to prove that I'm right. So this specific question, what experience do you have? Who have you sold for? You're going to want to have a list of people you have talked about and for. What's your familiarity with sales in the high ticket space, any numbers that you have regarding your performance. Again, I have numbers, pictures, etc. The more of that you can give, the better, because then it's less of an emotional thing they have to kind of suss out on the interview. They can just look at the data and say, this person's probably good. Yeah. And so then what's your familiarity with online marketing and online coaching programs? This is kind of a rundown of that. I have quite an extensive background. What are my goals? And when it comes to your goals, you want to be honest in terms of where you're ultimately going. And if you don't know what your goals are, go check out the North Star video I made on my channel about how to set goals. It's going to be raw, but it's important for you to get to that depth to understand ultimately what does make sense for you moving forward. And so for me, it's obviously to be able to make money, improve my skill sets, because I see security in skill sets. And the short-term goals for me are to work with a leader that I respect, the ability for me to learn the next level of skills for me, and then be able to make, 360K a year, ideally. So those are my shorter term goals and then my longer term goals. And the reason why I include that is because, one, I believe leadership is extremely important and it's very valuable to me now. It wasn't so much like a year ago. But the thing is, by me even saying that that's a goal of mine as like my number one goal, that puts me in a cut above other people that are going for the same position. Because just to let you know, you're competing against people that are going to be saying, I want 8 calls on my calendar every single day. I want them to be laydowns and I want to do as minimal shit as I possibly can. That's like this level of people. Then there's the next level who flip it and they're like, I'm going to think what this business owner wants. I'm going to try to flip the sales call so that I'm asking them questions. And by me asking them questions, I can position myself as a solution to their problem. That's like the level above the people at the bottom who are just wanting me, is the people who start looking at the business owner like you. Now, the next level above that is when you understand ahead of time what the business owner is looking for, which is what I'm kind of showing you right now. And then honestly showing the traits about you that are those things that they're looking for. And then talking about those things, because you're not trying to ask questions and you're stating who you are. And they're like, I like that. So they're coming to that conclusion in their own mind without you saying anything, because and it's being honest and authentic because you're just presenting who you happen to be at that time and where you're ultimately trying to go. So it's very genuine. Like, I haven't had to lie, and you shouldn't lie on interviews. But the reason why is because this is genuinely where I'm trying to go with my life. And they see that. and the authenticity is there. And the way my mannerism conveys it, they're like, this guy isn't putting on an act. He actually means this stuff. And so, with that being said, if we continue to go through the document, um, you know, a couple things you're going to want to know is, what are your top 3 professional achievements? And then what are your biggest failures? Be honest about that. Put them in the best possible light. I have a couple stories about myself. I'm not going to go too deep into that. Tell us about your experience that demonstrates you have work ethic, because a hard worker, if you're not that good, will overcome not being good by working hard. And so anything that you can show that you have been a hard worker and you are a hard worker at this point in time. If you have any like snippets you can share. So like for me, every offer I've been on, I've always had stuff I can use to verify that I am who I say I am. When I say I create assets for people, every offer I've been on, everybody I've tried to interact with, I've always tried to provide more value in the form of assets that I can share and help people using my brain to solve problems for them and then give them the solutions. That's essentially what this stuff is. So they can click on it and be like, shoot, this guy doesn't just close, he does other stuff as well that he's not necessarily paid for. Another one that they'll be interested in is what's your sales philosophy. This for me is just me objection handling someone. I'm like, give them the push they need to make a buying decision, which this is literally me doing that, is objection handling. Who has influenced your style of sales? If they're like, Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, that type of sales thing, and they're not a part of that, they're not a fan of that. They want you to be someone who's a little more empathetic, a little bit more caring, a little more consultative. That could be a conflict in sales styles, because sales has a variety of flavors. And so I present like, this is the way I sell. And then here's some one-on-ones I've done with Vicky Schroeder. And then the last one is, who are your last 3 bosses and how would they rate you? Here, I would say, just be honest. If you've got things that are bad about you, I mean, don't completely expand upon them to an unlimited degree, but tell them about that. For me, my biggest weakness and my biggest problem and concern that a lot of people have is, number 1, my internal confidence. And number 2 is my tendency to overthink. The internal confidence piece, I've done a lot of work the last 6 months to fix with Bill Walsh and his community and that sort of stuff, and trilling, draining, that type of stuff. So that's been mitigated to a huge degree. The other side of it is the tendency to overthink, which is still an issue to this day. It's good because I can think a lot and I can overcome most problems. But the problem with that is, if I can't solve it, it'll debilitate me until I can fix it. Every coach I've been through, every sales manager I've had has said the exact same stuff. But overall, I'm a fairly likable guy. I'm a great culture fit in almost every single place I've been. So overall, I would rate myself 7.5, 8 out of 10. And I can provide contact details to everybody who I have been on teams for. And they may have some nuanced differences from when I was back then, as far as he had issues with this that I then fixed. But overall, I've pretty much, any big problem I can fix, I have tried to fix primarily first. The overthinking thing I still need to work on, but I have mitigated it by taking other people that are more practical than me and say, bro, stop overcomplicating it. So that is what this is. Now, those questions are going to be on this doc, and I'll go ahead and share this somewhere underneath the video if you're willing and wanting, and you can use yourself and fill it out. Now, the other side of it, to really take my skills to the next level, is Leila Hermosi has come out with a video on what things you should think about when interacting with business owners. So when you're putting in for a company on your resume, what should you think about when calibrating it to this specific person? You can look it up on YouTube, go watch it. This right here is my notes from when I went through and applied her process to me and answered the questions that she was asking on that interview. So I would highly recommend that, on top of you going through building something like this, you flush it out more with Leila's questions. You can go find that. It's not difficult to do. Just take a Google Doc, write down her questions, and then write your answers for it. Listen to it a couple times, make sure you get it down, and go ahead and do that. Now, you don't have to do this, but this is what I've done. Because I know people are lazy, and they're probably not going to want to go and say, okay, this looks like an awesome doc, let's go ahead and like read all of it, because most people are lazy and they're not going to read all of it. They're going to look at the questions, see there's some answers underneath it, anything that sticks out to them they might look at. Very rarely is anybody going to go through and like actually read everything. They're more bullet pointers. So they'll read the questions, know there's a bunch of text underneath it, but that's basically it. And then they might click on a couple links. But so here is where I'm like, well, I know they're going to be lazy, so how can I make lazy people still get the message across? So then I made a video. And in the video, I go through, and it's essentially everything I have just created inside of this Tommy in a nutshell, literally. And because it's everything I've created, it hits on all these questions, all these points, and it positions myself in a way that other people aren't going to show up because you can literally go if they listen. I had one guy say he was just listening on audio, like, bro, this is pretty freaking sick. And then it's just a slide deck of me going through talking about who I am, like that sort of stuff, my previous track record, all those different things. And then like some of the things I've done. And because of this, it makes it easier for the business owner to really evaluate number one, is this person good? Presenting who I am, meaning this is my track record. Is it someone you want on your team? Then the other side of it is right now, at this point in time, as of halfway through the year of 2024, no one else is doing this. 0 people are doing this. So you putting in any additional effort is going to make you stand out compared to everybody else. And because of that, they understand that not only does this person show up and demonstrate who they are in the best and most compelling way, but they're willing to go above and beyond to convey that. Do I want that type of person on my team? Most business owners will say yes, because at this point in time, if you view yourself as just another employee, you're going to do the minimum. Again, going back to what I was here, let me pull up the screen again. Going back to what I was saying before, if you view yourself as an employee, you're not going to be thinking like this. And if you're not thinking like this, you're not going to be thinking like a problem solver. And business owners want problem solvers who can perform and think on their own on their team, because that means they don't have to do as much work. And that means that you can then ask for more money if you're wanting to move into higher levels of leadership or what have you. You make yourself just more valuable overall. And so as a result of this, I've tried to go ahead and distill this down as this is like third or fourth time I've actually made this video. How to land higher quality offers. At the end of the day, if you can't perform on a sales call and that's what you say you can do, it's not going to go well for you. It doesn't matter if you lie, you cheat, you steal, you put everything out into the world about how amazing you are. You're just going to burn your reputation and you're not going to be at a good spot, period. So that's the foundation. And like I mentioned, I would recommend investing in someone who you believe in, who's gotten the results you're looking for, and get the skill set. Because once you have the skill set, then you can follow on the rest of these pieces. If you're just starting out, obviously, like I mentioned, there's Tanner, there's Bill. Both of them have impacted me in a very, very positive way, extremely positive in different manners, but both of them have done good by me over the course of my limited time in the remote sales world, high ticket sales. So that's what I would say is if you go through these different steps, and I'll leave links to the doc below that you can go ahead and emulate, and you can find Leila stuff online. Because at the end of the day, if you approach from the mindset of this is my business and I'm competing against thousands of other people, how do I stand out and go above and beyond? If you approach it from that mindset, you're just going to be in a better spot overall. And then getting clarity on you, who you are as a human and where you're ultimately trying to go is also going to help. Because if you're wanting to not be a sales manager and you don't want to move into leadership, it's not going to serve you if you start saying that you're going to try to do that, because you're just lying. And there's going to come a point when you're going to have to disappoint them and disappoint yourself. So I wouldn't say that if that's not your long-term goals. So for me, honesty is the best policy. Genuinely figure out who you are to a T. And if you have issues with that, go do my goal setting video. Again, it's a little bit raw about me and my background, but it's worth it if you emulate it. And once you've done that, you'll get a very clear picture of who you are. You follow the questions as it's laid out, kind of the way I did. And then you really have that deep understanding of where you're trying to go in life, not just for the next 2 months. It's going to make you stand above and beyond everybody else. So that's what I would recommend if you are wanting to land offers consistently at a high level, because no one does this. No one's showing up like this. And unless you have like an in where you know someone and they can recommend you, you have to almost recommend yourself. And the way you recommend yourself is by being honest, truthful, and putting your best version out there. And if you're not preparing that best version and you don't know what that best version looks like, how can you expect the business owner when they interview to figure that out? Do the work for them. Make it easy on them. Because if you make it easy on them and you can demonstrate you're willing to put in more work than others, just that fact alone is going to separate you from a lot of people. So that's pretty much what I got for you. Any questions, go ahead and let me know below. If you want, you can reach out to me on any of the socials. You can obviously find me anywhere. My handle's the same everywhere. And until next time, Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm out.